My name is Dr. Daniel Pryce. I was born in Kumasi, Ghana. I was born in '69. My family spent 2 years in Kumasi, and then we moved to Ho in the Volta Region for a few years, and then we moved to Jessican in the Volta Region. My mother was what they call a domestic birther. My father was Lebanese. I didn't really grow up around him. As a child, I loved to play soccer. Spent a lot of time outdoors. We played soccer, we played ping pong or table tennis. I just love to spend time with friends. In '78, when General Achampong was in power, Achampong actually came to visit the town, and I saw him personally. He drove by where we lived on the campus of Jessican Training College. I was so blown away by all these military officers in crisp uniforms, and just the fact that they had on their boots, and then they had all these soldiers guarding them, was just very fantastic to watch as a child. And then shortly after that, in '79, was when Rawlings came to power through, unfortunately, another violent coup d'etat. I remember that we were heading to Accra. Rawlings had taken over. He had overthrown General Kufuor, who also had overthrown General Achampong just the year before. So it was just a series of coup d'etats. But then Rawlings came over the radio announcing the overthrow of General Kufuor. Shortly after that, they started playing martial music. When we got to Tema, just before we got on the motorway, there were roadblocks mounted by the military. They had all these stern-looking soldiers with AK-47 rifles, and each vehicle had to have its trunk opened for them to search and inspect before you were allowed to proceed. And our vehicle was searched. They asked my uncle what he did, and he told them that he worked in one of the secondary schools in Accra, and then they allowed us to go on. When we got home, it was just basically quiet. We had to stay indoors because they had announced a curfew. Nobody was allowed to go out from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. the next day, and the curfew was in place for several days, at least if I remember correctly. So our goal was to make it home before 6 p.m. and we basically just stayed glued to the radio the rest of the evening, and life seemed to have come back to normal the next day. But Dr. Limann came to power in September '79, and he was in power until 31st of December '81, when Rawlings came back to power again. When people have general conversations about Ghana, they don't talk much about Dr. Hilla Limann because some people felt he was not a very effective leader, but he came to power through the ballot box, which is what Ghanaians had always wanted. And as far as I am concerned, he was fairly effective. He wasn't allowed to finish his first term before Rawlings came back in '81 and overthrew his government. So Dr. Limann remains an important part of the history of Ghana because he was the people's choice at that time. Unfortunately, 2 years isn't a long time for any civilian leader to make an impact. I was in Accra when Rawlings came back to power the second time. It was around 10 a.m. on December the 31st, '81, when martial music started playing on the radio. So I was quite familiar with that type of music because I had heard it 2 years earlier when Rawlings overthrew General Kufuor. So when we heard that, we knew something was going on. And then Rawlings came over the radio and said he had taken over power for the second time, but he warned his fellow soldiers not to harm Dr. Hilla Limann. There were some student protests when Rawlings was in power, but most of the protests were organized by a group called NUGS, National Union of Ghana Students. And NUGS basically is just a conglomeration of university students. Some of the protests were under the banner of NUGS, but they didn't always go well because sometimes the police were sent to disrupt these demonstrations. People got hurt sometimes, but we had some very stubborn students who wouldn't just allow the government to silence them. So it led to a few clashes between students and the police. But they were determined to see change take place in the country. I'm always proud to say that I'm Ghanaian, and I'm proud to have my roots in Ghana. I just hope that the current crop of leaders that we have would do the best they can to move the nation forward.